Imagine a time long before our era. Around the year 3000 BC, people were already farming grain, raising livestock, and building the first cities, and yet, something essential was still missing. A way to preserve memory longer than a few days, and to send a message farther than the human voice could carry. In the beginning, there was no poetry, no epic tales. Writing was not born from art, but from necessity. At its core, writing began as accounting. In Sumer, the land between the rivers Euphrates and Tigris, the first bureaucracy arose. With it came a new need, to count sacks of grain, herds of cattle, and jars of oil. Sumerian farmers and merchants started pressing small marks into wet clay. These were not words yet, but symbols of ownership, seals that declared, "This belongs to me." Picture a Sumerian farmer with a full storehouse of grain. He doesn't want his neighbor to steal a sack and claim it as his own. So he takes a clay ball, presses his seal into it, and leaves a mark. When the clay dries, it becomes proof. Anyone who sees it knows, this sack of grain belongs to him. He doesn't need to stand guard anymore. That was the first step toward writing, symbols that spoke even without their creator present. But human imagination did not stop there. Soon, people wanted more. It was not enough to mark ownership. They needed to record, calculate, and organize. So came the first pictograms. Little pictures representing things: a cow, grain, bread. At first they were detailed drawings, but over time they became simpler, more abstract. A square with a single line could mean cow. Slowly, writing moved away from pictures and closer to symbols. It began to capture not just things but words, contracts, and taxes. And all of this was carved into clay with a reed stylus, leaving wedge-shaped impressions. This is how cuneiform was born, the world's first true writing system. With cuneiform, a new era began. Laws could be recorded, hymns and myths could be preserved. Thanks to these clay tablets, we can still read the world's oldest story today, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, another civilization was developing its own system: ancient Egypt. Egyptians too created symbols, but their writing evolved differently. Their hieroglyphs were elegant and detailed: birds, eyes, hands, and animals. Unlike the dry records of Sumerian grain, Egyptian writing carried a sacred meaning. They believed writing was not a human invention but a gift from the god Thoth, the deity of wisdom and magic. For the Egyptians, hieroglyphs were more than practical. They were symbols of power and immortality. Pharaohs carved their names deep into stone to ensure they would live forever. Each hieroglyph held a spark of divine magic. But carving symbols into stone was slow, and everyday life demanded something faster. So the Egyptians developed a simpler script, hieratic writing, painted with a brush onto papyrus. And papyrus itself was a revolutionary invention. Lightweight and portable, papyrus scrolls replaced heavy clay tablets and allowed messages to travel across great distances. And here is the fascinating part. These two traditions, Sumerian and Egyptian, eventually converged. In the Sinai Peninsula, a new script emerged: Proto-Sinaitic writing, which borrowed signs from Egyptian hieroglyphs. From there came the Phoenician alphabet, and the Phoenician script became the ancestor of Greek and later Latin letters. In other words, when you write ABC today, you are using symbols whose ancestors are thousands of years old. Each letter carries echoes of clay marks pressed by Sumerian farmers and sacred signs carved by Egyptian scribes. Writing began with the need to count sacks of grain and guard herds of cattle, but it soon became a gateway to immortality. It allowed rulers to inscribe laws, poets to share stories, and us to read their world. So we can say, the first true human civilization did not begin with the building of cities or the forging of metal. It began the moment we pressed our voice into clay, and it could still be heard forever. And if you want to keep exploring the forgotten origins of our world, don't forget to subscribe to the History Forge, because history is not dead. It is being rediscovered, unveiled, and retold every day.